There she is.
Right.
How's it going?
I was at the Knicks game. Okay, that was.
Okay,
Just caught the last flight back.
welcome to the June 11th, 2026 meeting of the Salem Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. My name is Rick Hartwig and I am chair. We will start with called order. Alan Holland. Present. Chris Donaldson.
Present.
Mauricio Flores.
Here.
Oh. Sigrid Olson.
Here.
Delight Walker.
Here.
Fraser Wick.
Here.
All right. That's good. We have everybody because we have some things that we need to sort out today. Approval of minutes for May 14th, 2026. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions? Okay,
Move to accept the minutes as printed, published.
is there a second?
Second the motion?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All righty, we've approved the minutes. All right, do we do not have any public comment? Okay. Our first board item is the Emerald Ash Borer Readiness and Response Plan update with Meredith Greer.
Hi y'all, my name is Meredith Greer. I'm the Natural Resources Planning Manager for the City of Salem. So I'm here to talk to you all about a recently completed plan for Emerald Ash Borer. It's a readiness and response plan. Just so I have an idea of how in depth to go, can I get a raise of hands if folks are somewhat aware of Emerald Ash Borer as a concept? Okay, fantastic, cool. Well, that's awesome and really great to hear. Just to do a little bit of table setting, we're talking specifically about this bug. This is an invasive and highly destructive wood boring beetle. It is really hard and kills our ash trees because they go and they lay their eggs on the outside of the bark, their larvae burrow in, and they go and they eat back and forth the cambium. And at some point, they've eaten so much of the tree that it's not able to pass nutrients and water up and down it, and that kills the tree. Overall, emerald ash borer is native to parts of Asia, where it generally has a pretty, it coexists with a lot of ash trees. It might attack kind of dead and stressed trees over there, but for the most part, they live together pretty well. Here in the US, however, because of the genetics of our tree, we don't have that kind of relationship. Emerald ash borer actually is considered the most destructive forest pest in US history. It's killed over 100 million trees. There's about a 95% mortality rate. If any of you are from the Midwest or the East Coast, you're probably a little bit aware of this. This video here shows kind of the spread of emerald ash borer. We first found it in kind of the Detroit area in 2002, and since then it's spread. You'll notice that it's generally spreading counties right around it, but sometimes we'll get jumps. So we'll see a jump that just occurred in Tennessee. We'll see a new jump that's going to occur in Colorado. And then you'll notice you'll see one jump all the way out in Oregon.
How did that jump occur in Oregon?
Yeah, so that's in 2022, we found it for the first time in Washington County. In general, and with a lot of our forest pests, the way that they're being moved is they likely came to the US on like woody material that was shipped around the world. They generally are moved inside the US in firewood. So one of the big campaigns that we've got going on and what we try and do to protect our forests often is try and tell people to buy it where you burn it. If you're buying firewood when you're going on a camping trip, trying to do that within 10 miles of where you found it is really helpful. We think that most of the unique populations, the jump we got in Tennessee, the jump we got in Colorado, and then the one in Oregon is likely people have, maybe they moved out here and they brought firewood with them, they transported it. Since we found emerald ash borer out in the Forest Grove area in 2022, if we can get out of the video.
First in Forest Grove.
First in Forest Grove. We have now found it in multiple different counties. The second kind of population that we found was Yamhill, Clackamas County, Marion County. We have also found emerald ash borer. This is a population that's generally kind of located in the Woodburn, Mount Angel area. So for us here in Salem, we haven't found it within city limits, but we found it within 5 to 7 miles of city limits. This is through the Department of Agriculture. They're trying to slow the spread of emerald ash borer. So they've set up quarantine areas in areas and counties where we know we have emerald ash borer. There are some restrictions, like please don't be moving woody material out of those areas. Right now, Marion County is considered within one of those areas because we found it up in Woodburn. Polk County, it hasn't been found yet. So Salem being uniquely divided by the county, part of the county is in a quarantine right now and part of it isn't. But all of this to say, we know that it's a matter of when, not if, emerald ash borer will come to the city. What I'm here to talk to you today about is kind of a plan that we put together to figure out how are we preparing for it and how are we responding to when we know we're going to find it here within the city limits. So this is our lovely EAB response plan. I know it was attached as part of the agenda. It's a pretty big document, and so I'm going briefly over kind of the high points today. It's broken into 4 main sections, kind of doing some intro and background on this bug, talking about the stakeholders and folks who are working on this, what we're doing to be ready for emerald ash borer, and then once we do find it, what are we responding to and what does that actually look like? So for a little bit of background, emerald ash borer generally here in the Pacific Northwest has about a 1-year lifespan. We see adults out migrating just about now. So because of the warmer weather we had this year, they actually came out earlier than we've ever seen them before. But usually between May and June, we'll have the adults migrating. They tend to, on average, they can move up to, you know, they'll migrate a mile before they go and they lay their eggs. We've seen studies though that emerald ash borer has flown up to 12 miles to go and lay eggs, which is why it's such a pervasive and successful pest. It moves so quickly, we'll get jumps in populations. Once the adults have found a tree that they decide they like, they'll go and they'll lay their eggs on the bark. We'll get those little larvae, which will burrow in, and they'll spend all winter going back and forth eating those trees. Especially as we're starting to not see winters where we have big freezes, it's actually increasing the speed at which emerald ash borer is repopulating. If we have a hard freeze, sometimes it'll take 2 years for them to fully develop because we're not getting them. We see them in a year, and every single year it's over and over again, which makes them really challenging to deal with. The somewhat good news is that emerald ash borer is very specific on the trees that they attack. So for us, we are mostly worried about our ash trees. They also attack some olive trees and white fringe trees, but not to the level of kind of devastation that we've seen. In Oregon, in general, we have 1 native ash species, which is our Oregon ash. These are ones that you'll see if you are looking along creeks, rivers, wetlands. They're pretty pervasive. They're absolutely amazing. They tend to grow in areas where we don't get a lot of other trees. We do also have a good number of other ash species that we use as street trees. Common ones are redwood ash. We also have green ash and things like that. When we're looking at and trying to prepare for emerald ash borer, it's important for us to list the ash trees. So a couple of the defining features of them, we're looking for furrowed gray bark. They've got kind of fuzzy points on their tips. In general, the big kind of giveaway is the V. They always want to grow in kind of V formations. It's a little bit challenging after the 2021 ice storm. We had a good amount of trees that had damage, and so that's not always the 100% accurate way. As soon as they kind of start budding out and you see those single wing samaras, it's a good tell that we've got ash trees. It's important to be able to know what an ash tree looks like and what emerald ash borer looks like is that we can start taking a look at what are signs and symptoms that a tree might have emerald ash borer attacking it. So in general, we look at a couple of different things. One is we're looking for thinning crowns and canopy decline. This is because EAB has eaten all of the kind of precious cambium in that area. The tree can't get nutrients up to its leaves, and you'll start seeing die off. We're also trying to pay attention to where is the tree deciding to sprout these epicormic shoots. So this is the tree's attempt to, hey, something has happened further up here. I'm not sure what's going on. I might try and sprout something a little bit lower to see if I can keep having branches going. In addition, we might start seeing woodpecker damage. So the bottom picture, you can see there's a little bit of a lighter color. This is a woodpecker, it's called flecking. The woodpeckers going in with their beaks and actually kind of breaking off some of the bark. The reason that they're here and why they're interested in the ash tree is that it can hear and sense that there are bugs underneath. So these ones, they're somewhat signs, ash trees, especially Oregon ash here, they're pretty pervasive. We can have ones that look absolutely terrible and they don't have emerald ash borer. So these are kind of ones that if we see that, we're a little bit worried. There are some symptoms where if we see them, we start getting a whole lot more worried. So the first one is bark splits. We're talking bark, about 6 to 8 inches where we're getting splits, and you can see a little bit underneath. We're starting to see some of those S-shaped galleries. So this is very specific to emerald ash borer. This is what their larvae are doing underneath. And then the other key indication that we have emerald ash borer are these D-shaped exit holes. They are very, very specific. They are only made by emerald ash borer on ash trees. There are a good number of other wood-bearing beetles that we have here in Oregon, including like our birch borer. They'll make a similar D, but if we've got D-shaped exit holes on ash trees, we have emerald ash borer. These three are the ones that we really, if we see this, we're concerned. So that's a little bit of the background about like what we're looking at, where are we looking, and why these things are important. To give you an idea, because ash trees are so incredibly important to the area and they cover so many different parts of Salem, we have to work with a ton of different partners on something like this. There's a bunch of internal folks here at the city who've been working on it from different departments. We also work really closely with a lot of our external stakeholders. Because this is the most destructive forest pest in US history, there's been a lot of statewide work, both from the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Forestry, to try and bring together different communities and jurisdictions to figure out what to do. And Salem has been a really big part of all of that. For us here specifically in town, the things that we're doing to get ready for emerald ash borer is first and foremost, we're working on detection. So you might see in some of the trees around town, these things are called purple prism traps. They're pretty darn big. They're about this big. They're purple. There's some science that emerald ash borer might like the color purple. It's a little bit circumstantial, but we're doing the best they can. They're ultimately covered in a really, really sticky kind of substance, and we have a lure in the middle that is supposed to attract them. They're not the most effective way. They're not they're not super effective, but they're the best way that we have before we start seeing mass die off in ash to catch where we might get them. So we have 16 of these traps up around town right now. Like I mentioned earlier, emerald ash borer are traveling right now, and so we're hoping to catch them. We put up these traps in late May or at the end of May. We'll end up checking them for the first time in about July, then we'll check them again in September. If we end up finding emerald ash borer, we'll kind of go into the next steps of our plan, but this is our main detection method. We're also trying to work on really doing a lot of public engagement. So we want folks to be aware of what's going on, to start being able to make a plan for what to do with their own ash. So here with me today, I've got Josh Evans. He's one of our urban forestry interns. We have 5 interns. The other 4 of them right now are at Salem Service Day, which is going down at Riverfront Park, and they're doing education outreach all about emerald ash borer. And that's what we'll be taking to a lot of the events that we do this summer. In addition, we're also doing a ton of inventory work. So for us to be able to make an idea of like, what are we doing with our ash trees? We also need to know, where do we have ash trees? So Josh and the other urban forestry interns have been helping us with that. We've been mapping ash trees mostly along our streets and right of way, as well as in our like kind of built parks, like around playgrounds and things like that. We have a really good inventory of all those trees. Probably about 95% of those trees in Salem have been inventoried. In some of our natural areas, which is the bottom right-hand photo, that's at Minto Brown Island Park, we've been starting to do over the last month or 2 with our interns, mapping natural area ash, where we know we have a ton more. The idea being that if we have a better idea of where these areas are, we can actually make management decisions on what to do. Now we get to kind of what can we do about emerald ash borer. For the most part, there are kind of 4 big things that you can decide to do. One is we can do nothing. This is something that we've seen either by choice or by circumstance in a lot of the East Coast. They weren't ready, they weren't prepared. They were kind of the first kind of ground hub for this. A lot of their ash trees got sick, got infected, and they died. And we saw huge swaths of neighborhood trees lose their canopy all at one point. We can also decide that we're going to do upfront work we can decide to underplant these areas where we currently have ash, or we can decide to remove an ash tree and replace it with something else. We do also benefit from the fact that because the Midwest and everybody else have been doing this for the past 2 decades, there's been a lot of research. And there is something that we can do to help stop emerald ash borer. One of them is treating them. There's an insecticide called emamectin benzoate, which you can actually inject into the trunk of ash trees. It's uptaken and it's toxic to the larva. So an emerald ash borer can go and lay its eggs on the outside of the trunk. But as soon as the larvae go inside and they try and eat it, it's toxic to them and kills them. It's pretty darn effective. About 95% of the trees that are treated then can live to their normal healthy life. So these are kind of the 4 main options that we have. And I'm going to kind of walk through the plan we have for these different parts of Salem. The first part is we have a lot of urban ash. So these are ash trees that are generally along our right of way and are in our developed parks, as well as on city-owned property. So like the city owns this building, they own Center 50 Plus, things like that. In these areas, our goal is to really manage the risk of ash when they're dead and dying, as well as trying to do everything we can to maintain the canopy cover that a lot of these really big hardy trees are providing. So what we're doing and what we found so far is we found a little under 4,000 of those urban ash trees have been inventoried. Our goal right now is if a tree is in poor health, we're planning on removing that tree. If the tree's in good enough health that we think that it can survive and provide benefit, we're actually injecting it. And this is an example of what kind of that system ends up looking like. It's about 95% effective, requires us to treat them every 2 to 3 years. And for the most part, it's pretty cost effective in general, especially with big ash trees. It's more effective for us to spend the money on treating them than it is to remove them because removal costs are really high. We started this process and we treated about half of our urban ash trees, I think we treated 600 or maybe 700 last year. The Urban Forestry Department started that. We did the northern half of the city because we know that's the closest to the last known outbreak in Mount Angel. This summer, we're going to be treating the southern half. We're going to kind of go back and forth, doing what we can to extend the life of these ash trees. When we do have them die, either through natural causes or because of emerald ash borer, we're going to work on replanting those trees one for one, especially along a lot of our streets. Now, this is an awesome thing that we're able to do, but it's not something that's going to work in every part of Salem. So we also have natural areas where we have a ton of ash trees. So these are areas where the primary focus of them tends to be a little bit more natural environment, the idea of getting the community to come out and engage with nature in a little bit less of a manicured way. So think about Minto Brown Island Park and other areas like Chandler Nature Park. Our goals here are a little bit different. One, we do want to manage the risks of dead and dying ash trees, but we also want to figure out how can we help to transition these habitats into what kind of comes next, knowing that they're going to lose a good amount of their ash canopy, especially along these natural areas where we do have a lot of water. Ash is the dominant species, and we need to figure out what are we going to do. It's not feasible for us to one by one go through and remove or replace these. In general, in the city, we have a little over 1,500 acres that are considered natural areas. Of these, we've done a little bit of kind of work with some aerial imagery, some machine learning to be able to tell what ash canopy looks like. We know that we have about 450 acres that we have a dominant ash canopy. That's a ton of area. And so this map down here is an example of those kind of red spots are where we have ash canopy on city-owned property in West Salem. So that's at Chandler Nature Park and Orchard Heights Park. And what we're doing right now and what the urban forestry interns have been really helping us with is trying to inventory, especially the ash along trails, along areas where they're going to have the biggest impact if they do end up falling either on people or on infrastructure. We're working right now to create management plans. For the most part, a lot of these areas will honestly, where we're taking the approach of doing nothing, of we don't have the time or the resources to be able to do everything. We are also working on trying to pilot a program in the next fiscal year working to underplant these areas. So if we're able before our ash die to go in and plant a bunch of native trees or shrubs, we're hoping that maybe as the ash die, we've given these kind of native species a head start, a jump to be able to fill that canopy void when we have our ash die, rather than just letting everything go and kind of being taken over by a lot of the invasive species we struggle with in these areas, like blackberry or canary grass. In addition, there are going to be some trees in these areas that we're going to have to remove, or especially in natural areas, if we think that we're able to set them up where they're not going to be a danger, creating habitat snags is really, really big. In addition, there could be some of these trees that we end up deciding are really good candidates and adding them to our treatment list. So these are kind of the different actions that we're taking in our natural areas versus our urban trees. Now we know that there are also a ton of private area ashes. So these are ash trees on property owned by anybody other than the city of Salem. Our goal right now is to just be able to provide property owners with information on how to identify if they have ash trees and to determine what management options they have for their ash trees. So this includes a lot of community engagement. So this is things like going to public events. We have a good amount of information on our website. That's a screenshot from our website. We'll be doing press releases when we do find that we have emerald ash borer both in Salem and Marion County, where we know there already is, and when the quarantine gets extended to Polk County if we find it in the West Salem area. We're going to be working with a lot of our partners to be doing things like that, posting on social media, attending events, and we do offer site visits, especially to a lot of our streamside landowners. All of this is kind of doing everything that we can to provide information to help with this transition, because it is going to be a big change here in Salem. So what we're doing right now is we're kind of focusing on these main things. We're working on our inventory. We're working on creating plans for a lot of our natural area ash. We're also working on implementation. So like I mentioned, our urban forestry crew are treating a lot of street trees. They're removing the ones that aren't good candidates for treatment. We're also doing detection. We're out there and we're checking our traps every single year along with our partners. We're providing training. Honestly, the best people to find when we have emerald ash borer are a lot of our field crews who are out there. So we've provided training to a lot of different groups to make sure they know the signs and symptoms of EAB and are able to identify ash trees. We're also working a lot on outreach, which is part of what I'm doing here today. I know that was a super quick, very broad overview, but I'm happy to take any questions. Like I mentioned, the document is online.
Is that your phone number?
That is my phone number, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my phone number and my email. This is also a photo of woodpeckers and a better example of that flecking that we're seeing. That gives you an indication of woodpeckers are here because I think there's something good in there. And oftentimes that is kind of one of the flags.
May I ask a quick question?
Hey, questions?
Yeah, just one question, please. I don't have ash trees in my yard, but I associate with a lot of people. If I give them your name and your phone number, and they do have ash trees in their yard, can they call you and ask for advice?
Absolutely.
And can they get one of those cages in the tree to catch them if they are?
So the purple
Or
prism.
do they cost money for people?
So the purple prism traps are generally just used to be able to see if we have if we have emerald ash borer in the area. They're not cages, they're not traps, they're just detection. We have 16 of those traps spread all across the city.
Okay.
And they cost money and they're something that the city does every single year. They're not a great solution for just somebody who wants one in their home. In general, what they should be doing is being aware, going to our website to find information about emerald ash borer, making kind of management plans for what
Is
they
that your
plan to do.
website there?
So that's my email address. I'm happy to share the website if somebody emails me. We also have like links to our website in our Emerald Ash Borer Readiness and Response Plan, which is attached to the agenda.
It's just that I don't have ash trees, but I know a lot of people who have trees in their yard. I mean, I also garden for Lansing Park and Livingston Park. I don't know if there's ash trees in those parks, but
There are ash trees. Yeah, there are ash trees in almost every single one of our parks. Ash is one of our more dominant species, especially in a lot of our riparian areas. So this will be a big change in Salem, and that's why we're trying to prepare for it. This is also coupled a little bit later. We'll likely be coming back either later this year or early next year. We're working on updating our community forestry strategic plan, which is looking at our canopy as a whole. This will be a big element in that as we think about how do we transition our canopy through this change and how do we make it more resilient to future pests, because we know that they're coming and we're seeing a lot of these things kind of pop up. What can we do to help ensure that our canopy is resilient to these kind of changes as possible?
I love trees.
Me too.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes,
Alan?
first of all, Victor, thank you for an excellent presentation. Very informative and thorough. It's really good to have that. Appreciate it. Is research being done on developing resistance through GMO work?
So that's a fantastic question. There's nothing that we're doing research wise to create ash that are resistant. What we're seeing on the East Coast is after they've had their huge wave of emerald ash borer, they're seeing that some of their ash have survived. And that means that there is some inherent genetic resistance to emerald ash borer, but it's not pervasive in the population. Based on that information, what we're doing here in Oregon, if there have been huge seed collection efforts that have gone pretty much up and down kind of the Willamette Valley, where they're trying to collect ash seeds from all these different trees. The idea being that they're planting those, they're setting up test plots. Once we have emerald ash borer come through and we're able to see what trees are surviving, which ones do we think have good genetic resistance, we'll be going back to those seed banks, replanting those trees and trying to populate and kind of reproduce ash trees that are more kind of resistant to EAB. So we're hoping that we might see a really big die off of ash trees in the next kind of 10 to 15 years. But once we learn what genetic resistance looks like, we're able to replant ash and they might be able to come back and kind of repopulate some of these areas. Unfortunately, we just don't know until we actually get in and see if they've got that genetic resistance.
You mentioned that there's a natural resistance in their original indigenous range in Asia. Perhaps those trees could be used as a genetic resource, as you were suggesting with the others that are found. What's the concerns if the boar is seen in town areas else, not otherwise seen? What's the citizen to do if they see one of those guys?
That's a great point. So the Oregon Invasive Species Council has an invasive species hotline. That's where they would prefer people to report, even if you see a tree that you think might be suspicious, or if you see a bug. There's actually a good number of green bugs in Oregon that we often get calls of. I saw emerald ash borer, I'm sure. We do have a ton of native green bugs, but this one in particular, for the most part, we don't anticipate people just finding an emerald ash borer. You're likely going to see a declining ash tree. That's going to be your real indicator. But contacting the Oregon Invasive Species Hotline means that you'll be put in touch with the correct representative. Generally in our area, that means Oregon Department of Forestry will get a notification and they'll actually send staff out to go check. They're the ones who do the kind of final the buy off. Even if we found it here, I myself, my colleague Jeff would go out and we'd be like, yep, we think it's emerald ash borer. We would also report to the Department of Forestry. They would come out and just confirm and say, yes, we agree with that. So that's kind of process that we would go through.
So a lot of the science, is that being done for prevention and sort of remediation? Is that the forestry department as well with Oregon State or?
Oregon State has been
I
a
assume
huge
they-
partner. Yeah, so they've got a bunch of like even graduate and PhD students who are working on things. University of Minnesota, because they were kind of
yes.
near ground zero, are also a fantastic hub of a lot of this research. And they're helping kind of to lead some of the efforts around like Mediterranean oak borer is also a new invasive species that's been found recently in the Willamette Valley and in kind of the Napa Valley area. And unlike emerald ash borer, we're kind of ground zero for that in the US. So we're trying to take the skills we've learned through emerald ash borer to recreate a lot of those things for future pests as well. But Oregon State University has done a ton of great work and we've been working really closely with them and our other statewide partners to learn everything that we can.
Okay,
Are one woodpecker better than the others at getting at these bugs, the pileated versus the others?
Jeff, do you have any idea?
Affiliated just because of how big and strong they are. They're faster, but all sizes of woodpeckers will go after these.
They would,
bugs.
okay.
hey, Chris?
Yeah, just as far as the insecticide application, it sounds like cost, another program of work for urban forestry. Is that not a limiting factor as far as street trees go? Or are there any concerns about sustainability of that every 2-3 application?
Yeah, so if you end up looking through the Emerald Ash Borer Ratings and Response Plan, we've kind of outlined in some of the appendices like what it would actually cost in a 10-year program to do this internally versus externally. What we have been doing we've been able to keep costs down because we've been doing it internally. The capacity issue is it takes 2 full-time staff about a month and a half to treat the trees. And so if staffing changes, that cost would increase and that would have to be kind of contracted out. We're hoping that that isn't the case, but that would end up being kind of something that we'd have to think of at that point.
Mauricio has his hand up.
Hey, well, thank you very much, Meredith. Oh,
Mauricio.
yeah, go ahead.
All right, thanks. Just 2 questions. Is there relief on homeowners or the community when it comes to making decisions on removal? Is the first question.
Sorry, what was the first part of that? Are there resources?
No, relief as far as permitting and costs because sooner or later,
Yeah, that's
trees
a
are gonna
great
have to be removed, so.
That's a great question. For the most part, Mylan Davis, who is our urban forester, and I have been discussing putting out as part of our press release kind of an emergency order saying that for removing ash trees, there will not be permitting fees for getting that done. We want to lower the barrier for people to be able to do that. At the moment, we don't have any programs that would help folks with, removing ash trees or things like that. But we are providing a bunch of information and education about what options they have for managing their ash trees and recommendations for what they end up doing with woody waste that would come from deciding to remove an ash tree.
Okay, all
Thank you.
right. Thank you, Meredith. That was very informative. Yeah, at parking lot 1, I kept seeing this purple thing up on the tree. And I'm going, my first question is, because it's way out on the limb,
Mhm.
far out. And I'm going, how did they get that there?
Yeah, so we end up using like a bucket truck to put that one up in particular. We've gone back and forth on whether to put signs out to let people know what the traps are for. We've heard other jurisdictions, once people know what it is, they start recognizing them and doing things like throwing rocks at them and
Oh.
trying to get them out of trees. And so for the most part, we don't provide signage on them. We just put them out. And if
So you
they have
use a
questions,
crane bucket instead
put
of
a
a,
crane bucket, yep.
Rob was telling me that there was a guy that crawls out on the limb and does it. And,
Oh,
and I keep looking at that going, there's no way that the branch is really small.
yeah, for the most part, we're using a bucket truck or a really long pole with a hook on it in some of our locations.
okay.
But yep,
Your parents know no staff.
yeah, we try and be as safe as possible for all of our staff.
I would hope so.
Yeah,
Thank you, Meredith.
thank you all.
Okay. Next item is a Brown Road Park Phase 1 development update with Rob.
Hi, everyone. Rob Romnak, Parks Planning Manager. Let's see. Just getting my stuff up here. Oh, it's Edge, okay.
Oh.
Mauricio, can you confirm if you can, oh, geez. Mauricio, can you confirm if you can see my screen, if that's possible?
It's loading.
Okay. I'll try it again.
Brown Road. Mhm.
There it goes. Okay, great. Okay, so today I want to provide an update about Brown Road Park, which is a neighborhood park in Northeast Salem. I'm going to start with some basic information about the park and then kind of talk about where we are in a project, which is an initial phase of development for the neighborhood park. I'm going to start just with a street view. This is a lot like Google Street View, it's just the city's version. Just to give you a sense of, I can't take you out there in the middle of a meeting, but I can show you what it looks like from the street. That's essentially what it is. I'll show you a map of where it's located. I just want to, in this image, show you that we have done some frontage improvements in the park. That's really what I want to highlight here. A number of years ago, there was a big urban upgrade to Brown Road. And with that project, they added some on-street parking just for the park, right in front of it. They also put in a improved pedestrian crossing right at the park, which is really great. And then they set up an entrance for what would be a new pedestrian access to the park, and this temporary parking lot is actually proposed to be removed with the development of the site.
Okay.
I just want to show real quick the half-mile service area of the park as we've modeled it, because I think it's important to understand that the park only has access from Brown Road, which limits its service area. So in terms of this concept of a walkable half-mile service area, it's serving a pretty good sized area, but it's not the most densely populated area of the city. And it also overlaps a lot with McKay service area. So these parks are pretty close together. In 2018, I led the master plan, what we call now a development plan for this site, working with NOLA, the North Lancaster Neighborhood Association. We did not hire a consultant for that project. I did everything myself directly. I had more time back then. I wasn't the park planning manager. I was just a park planner. We worked with the neighborhood and we came up with a plan, and it was approved by city council. I'll just go over it briefly. It preserves an existing community garden and actually proposes some accessibility enhancements. Near the front of the park is an adult fitness area. You can see at the time those street improvements were proposed, so we visualized them here. We also proposed the half-court basketball, a dual zone playground, taking on an existing irrigated patch that's in the back of the park and actually formalizing it as more of a drop-in field for use. I wouldn't call it a formal soccer field, but the idea was like kids could drop in and play. And then when this plan was created in 2018, there was a pretty dense grove of white poplar in the park. And during the ice storm, they all collapsed completely. And so they're gone. they actually at that point became a nuisance because they were setting up tons of saplings. And so we managed that, and they're gone. And so we basically have an interesting situation. We have a clean slate to create a new natural area in the park, which is a little different. And then there is a little bit of a pollinator garden tucked in the back of the park. And actually we've tried to establish that already. Let's see.
No parking.
Again, the parking is just, because it's a neighborhood park especially, it's just a little bit of on-street parking.
Yeah.
So now, moving forward to just within the past year, I'll talk about this later in the agenda, but the planning process concluded, and then this park has been waiting patiently in line, and now we've started to fund a development phase, and it's going to be an initial development phase. We weren't able to afford to do all of this in one phase, but as a first step, we took that concept I just showed you and we made what we call a schematic design. We kind of made that design real. And so that is what I'm showing you here. When we did that, one of the first things we did is we reassessed the wetlands we knew about on the site and found they had gotten bigger. One of the challenges with this site, aside from its access, is it's really flat and it's no drainage. It is kind of like a bathtub. And so these wetlands are growing. They're not getting smaller, they're actually getting bigger. And so right at the front of the park, we have a jurisdictional wetland, and then in that natural area is a jurisdictional wetland as well. So that's one reason why the sport court has been moved. But generally, we've stick to the plan. We have an adult fitness area in the front, the walkway. We have some stormwater rain garden plantings around the area to manage stormwater creatively. The playground and the picnic shelters also moved a little bit, I believe, but generally we've kept to the concept. I'm gonna make this a little bit more. And I just want to show you for interest. That's a colorful graphic, but we're actually developing the design of the park. So that was a schematic design. We've taken that a little bit forward. We've actually started to prepare construction documents. And it's just showing you, this is the site plan review set. So this set of plans was actually used to submit for land use approval. Because just like any other developer in the city, parks is subject to all of the land use rules. So we have submitted for site plan review. This was the site plan we submitted. And so right now, currently, we have this in review with planning, and we expect to get through site plan review. It's a pretty boring site plan review, I'm just to be honest. We are advancing the design. This you consider like a 30% design, like we're 30% to full construction documents. Now we're moving to 60%. So we're moving toward a schedule to build something next summer. That's what I think is important to take away. What's next here? Well, funding. I want to talk about the budget briefly. All that stuff I just showed you, we won't be able to do it all. We're going to try to do as much as we can. The project is budgeted at $1 million. That's not a ton of money for an entire park at all. So we will likely have some kind of strategy of reducing items from what I just showed you, as well as taking advantage of some really good bids we got recently on other projects to have savings in those projects that are going to allow us to transfer money into this project. So that's some of the background work that's going to be happening over the next year. I do anticipate the project budget will be more than $1 million a year from now. We're just gonna see what we can do.
To make that whole park what you envision.
I don't think we're gonna get to everything. Some things that I'm specifically not sure we're gonna get to is that adult fitness area, those the community garden improvements. Maybe there's a secondary picnic area like in the back corner of the park. There's some things we might not be able to get to, but we're gonna try. Certainly the main path system, the playgrounds. We want to get it to be a functioning neighborhood park. So we want to get enough in there that's kind of worth it.
No, community garden improvements don't get cut.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Was there any interest or comments about a splash pad or something like that for kids, water play?
You wanna? I can answer that question, but member Wick has his hand up too.
Oh,
yeah. Real quick on that. This is a neighborhood park, so as kind of a policy, at least certainly at the time the plan was prepared, we don't do splash pads in new neighborhood parks. So we break our rules all the time, but as a design policy for the city for a brand new neighborhood park, we don't do splash pads.
did somebody had their hand up?
We do break our rules all the time. No. Member Wick?
Yeah, I had a question for you on the pathways. Has the city looked, especially with the drainage issues, considered alternatives to concrete for pathways, such as like resin-bound gravel pathways? Um,
We certainly have, we had a whole group of, engineers go over to Corvallis recently, including the engineers that support our park projects, to look at some installations of that kind of system you just mentioned. And we're still evaluating how we could use it, in our park system. I know there are some environmental contaminant concerns with some of that. But to answer your question specifically, there just is an asphalt path in the back, although it's still impervious. The issue we have here is that we just don't have the topography to really do the treatment of the stormwater before it leaves the site. That's the challenge of our civil engineers. They're getting really creative with how they capture the water, and not to get too much in the weeds, but the surfacing of the playground is currently a hot debate on the project team. We recognize that the wood chips we typically use in a playground are not the most accessible surfacing of a playground. But the alternatives create more stormwater management challenges for us. So we're trying to see, we're having discussions about maybe hybrid systems, a little bit of both, or maybe off-site stormwater treatment, so we can't do it here. Maybe we'll do it downstream somewhere. We're figuring out all right now as part of the sausage making that's happening in the background. See, I think that's the last thing I had. Oh, schedule. So I just wanted to be clear on schedule, and then I'd be happy to take any additional questions. Leave it on this one. We will soon receive our 60% design submittal from the design team. And I imagine toward the end of the summer, we'll be progressing toward 90% design, and then we'll be in really good shape to bid this project in the kind of the prime season for construction projects, which is like generally November to, I'd say February, where the contractors don't have all their work lined up for the next year. So they're a little bit more hungry, and they typically give better pricing. And so that's really important, because we want to take advantage of anything we can do to get the more done for less money. So we're in really good shape on this particular project in terms of that schedule, moving toward a construction project next season.
Any other questions?
Well, I have a question. I'm looking at this. This looks great. So this is in line before the Fisher Road Park, right? And the Fisher Road Park, I mean, the thing is, I'm looking around, you see those pictures of those houses? It doesn't have that density that Fisher Road or even Royal Oaks has. And I'm just saying, I just feel like, I don't know if this is needed as much as that Fisher Road development part.
Yes, what I'll say to that is, I share those concerns, first of all. Second of all, what we've done with Fisher Road is also intended to start construction next summer. So they're kind of on similar trajectories.
Yeah,
With the Fisher Road project,
I know it's more complex.
we have taken city resources and we've really put them behind that project. So that almost $2.2 million grant is we have to match every dollar. So that means the city needs to also have 2.2 million. And so that is now shaping up to be like a 4 million plus project. This one, we're going to be lucky if we have 1.5 million.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Is there any concern with the expanding natural wetlands there, that they will continue to expand with the development around it, or is there any like?
I think once the development is in, we're going to they're going to be confined.
Okay.
The other thing, I really do mean the site as a bathtub. And so when we develop the park, there's going to be catch basins added. There's actually a stormwater line stubbed into the city stormwater system. So there's a pipe sitting underground waiting for us to connect the storm system to it. And so there will be, at some point,
The high water
will get and it will
just
drain.
flows off.
Yeah.
Okay. And are you gonna do like maybe more riparian type plantings around there, like willows or?
We certainly are talking about that back here. Here, going back to that original conversation in the neighborhood, one of the sensitivities was sightlines into the park and just making sure that it's a safe place, right? And so these things we're trying to find that balance.
Cool.
So I think we've talked about like low vegetation that we could do in the front wetland, I think that's certainly something we're continuing to talk
Okay.
about.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool if the back wetland actually captures some of those more natural riparian kind of species mixes for wildlife and whatnot.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I just mentioned that when Alvin and I went to all the parks in the city, we had a hard time even seeing this one. Because it was like a big lake. We couldn't find a way to get into the park that was not underwater. So, and I don't know how to swim and it was cold and so, yeah, hopefully they'll figure all that out. And, it looked like it could have been a really good neighborhood park. It was either that or a swimming hole.
If I may, I just show, this is our preliminary grading plan. And I know we're getting some really technical information up here. I just want to show like, so this is, we're gonna be raising up the main use area. And it's gonna sit just slightly higher than the rest of the landscape. So it's just to show you these edges here. So there's essentially gonna be a 1 foot drop off on the perimeter of this main use area. Again, we're building a little up. We have civil engineers involved and they're doing their job.
Yeah.
Good.
Creating an island.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much, and keep us posted. Okay, next, we're gonna talk about our yearly park tour. It's part of our work plan for the year. And for those of you that were on the board last year, and I can't remember what month we did it in.
I don't remember, but it was a summer. I think it may have been June or July.
Oh, really? Okay. And the tour is where we go around and basically I think there are like 3 different types of parks we look at. One that's proposed, one that's in construction, and one that is finished construction. How many parks did we go to last year?
I believe we did 3 or 4. I would recommend planning for 3 with the potential for a 4th sub time
Okay.
allows.
All right, so what we need to decide, board, is what month we're going to do it. It takes the place of our monthly meeting, which means it would be on the second Tuesday. Or excuse me, second Thursday of the month. And it would start at about 1 o'clock. So what we have to do, and I don't know if everybody here, I've got to see if everybody is here either on Zoom or in person. I don't know if we could, I think it'd be difficult to decide which month to do this in. But I think really we need to go to, we send out a
Doodle.
yeah.
If I may, we could do a broader set of date polling, and if necessary, we could just cancel the normal meeting and schedule what's called a special meeting. So don't feel like you have to hold it at the normal meeting time.
Okay,
Yeah, I think we did in the fall last year.
I thought we did it
Okay,
in the
that could be,
fall.
I might-
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
Deer Park and we did Hoover and we did, I forget.
Riverfront.
Riverfront.
Riverfront, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was in
Okay.
the fall. I love the vibe of the fall.
So just for the sake of being able to not take hours to do this right now, I think we need to, I have to put more things on your plate, and I know you're busy, but that's why we pay you the big bucks. And we can figure out which month, basically you just say, okay, I can make this, like Sigrid, 1 o'clock might be a little bit more difficult for you during the school year.
Well, I've just been taking my personal time. So it's not difficult. That's fine.
Okay, also deciding which parks to go to would be an issue. And if we're gonna do one that's proposed, one that's in progress, and one that is done, there might be different parks in July than there would be in October. So if you have any parks that you would like to have on the list, please let Rob know.
I can also suggest the list here
Yeah,
just to get some
shoot.
feedback, some staff suggestions here.
Okay,
Riverfront Park, of course, If you go in September or later, I'm fairly confident the playground will be open. We may not be completely done with the electrical improvements. The Stella Street Park, which there was a discussion about at the last meeting, we definitely stopped by there. And then close to Stella Street Park is Royal Oaks Park, which is an older neighborhood park where we'll be replacing the playground next summer with the bond funds. So that might be an interesting stop. Fairview Park. This is another park that's in the queue for, and we're working to start the design process on a phased development there. And that's a bigger site. That's a 28-acre park. So that's certainly an option to go visit. And then lastly, but not least, is Northgate Park. Raymond and I submitted the city's grant application for Northgate Park last Friday. Using that new placer tool I talked about at the last meeting, we were able to understand that park is the most heavily utilized of all our neighborhood parks. It has the biggest visitation over the past 12 months by a good margin. We were also able to create a heat map of where those visitors come from, and it really is a neighborhood park. If you look at that map, I don't have it with me today. I wish I brought it, but it truly functions as the close to home recreation resource. It really is that half-mile area. It's kind of amazing to see that.
Is that?
And so if you went to Northgate Park, we could talk more about that grant project as well as what we will do if we don't get the grant.
Hey, Rob and Bart, can I speak? I know being virtual is hard to see when my hand's raised, but I just did want to give an opinion on the last couple of years. We've done this tour in the fall or cloudy, rainy season, if you will, and there's hardly ever any activity at the parks. And I think the purpose of a park is to see it lively in action with visitors to really see the impact of these parks. So I know it's a shorter notice to consider this, but I think I would try to consider something before September or before, just to see these parks, besides the projects that we're doing, just to see parks in action, just like you just said, Rob, like the parks to have more utilization and the heat map and all. I think it's an interesting perspective for us to have if we see these parks in that moment, because we've just seen them in the rainy seasons and off seasons, which is good for certain perspectives, but I think there's something to really seeing them in the season when they're being utilized.
Good point. Okay, so I will hearing that, I will include dates starting in July, going maybe a little further, yes, through at the end of September. That's what I'm hearing in the poll that I do. Also, I'm hearing that maybe there should be some dates, maybe some Fridays, and would members entertain a Saturday?
Yeah, I think particularly if you want to do it sooner, I think more days than just one Thursday a month. I know for me, August wouldn't work for the first Thursday or the second Thursday rather. I know with fire season, I've already got a commitment to be at least virtual on that meeting. So yeah, I'd say throw out some additional days that work better for my schedule.
I assume the bus has air conditioning.
Yes, it does.
Okay,
I'm retired. I can.
any,
Appreciate the comment in the chat too.
okay. All right, go ahead. Fraser, you said?
Oh, yes, Member Wicks said weekends are great if you can't read that text, and Member Flores said Saturday's work wouldn't be fine. Oh, wouldn't be fine. I thought it said would be fine. Wouldn't be fine.
No.
Okay, so we'll give a variety of dates just to make sure we can compass everyone's schedules. Yeah.
I'm sure you would appreciate something during the week.
Staff would certainly support a work day kind of hour, but we're here to support you.
Yes. It's very diplomatic of you. Any other input? Okay. Well, then be looking for that email.
When should we anticipate that?
It's a good question.
Roughly.
Next week at some point. I won't commit to Monday,
No.
but next week. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, unless there's any other.
Oh, no, sorry to cut you off. You're going.
Yeah, any other discussion on this, we will go to park planning's practice spotlight. Capital
Yes.
project planning for individual parks. so we can find out what the process is.
Yes, hopefully my slides load there online. That again.
One last thing, obviously, if we go on this tour, we can't have, we like to have everybody on site. We can't do it on Zoom. That would be difficult.
That meeting will not be a hybrid meeting.
No, that'd be a hybrid.
So today, my intention is just to give get everyone on a same like baseline information about how a capital park improvement is conceptualized and how does it move through kind of what is its process? So how do we get from just like talking about doing something at a park to actually getting a project together? And I'm going to keep it pretty high level, but I just want to kind of talk through all the process. It's a lot of process. We're showing you a lot of process. I'm going to break this into two phases. The first phase I'll call the park planning and conceptual development phase. This is like when we create the plan that council approves. That is a really good way to summarize it. And that's a lot of words on one slide, but we're going to go through this. So the first step, so for example, Brown Road Park, I said we didn't use a consultant on that project, but most of the time we hire designers to help us because we're only a staff of 2 people. We have a lot of work. So that takes some time. To hire that consultant team to find the right fit for the project, to negotiate their fees and their level of effort, make sure we're getting just what we need and not anything we don't. So that's always the first step. The second step is then site assessment and background research. It's pretty high level at this phase. We're not really drilling into all the details of the site, but we're trying to understand what the park property really is that we're planning. And then we do something called an opportunities and constraints analysis. That's just taking that assessment information and laying it out in a way that's more digestible to us, but also to the community that we're going to be engaging with. The next step there, the blue steps there are I would call the community engagement steps in the process. Once we do all that kind of initial research and analysis, we have our first round of public engagement, which is generally focused around visioning and understanding the needs of the future users of the park, the community around the site. We then take their feedback and take the analysis that we did, and we create different options, different site plan ideas, different programming scenarios, different ways to use the property as a park. And we then present those back to the community and get reactions from them. These two community engagement processes, we typically do an in-person component, pop-up events, open houses, and increasingly we also mimic that experience with an online survey or a virtual open house. So that if you want to come engage with us, talk to us, really understand the project, the in-person is probably a really great space for you to go. And then you can go home and take our survey to reinforce your feedback. Or if you're just really busy and you don't have time to come to us on whatever time we're holding it or wherever we are, the online survey is at least a tool where you can get sure your voice is heard in the process. And so after we go through kind of these 2 rounds of community feedback, we prepare what we call a community preferred concept. On every park planning project I've worked on, which at this point is more than I care to say, it's always been a hybrid of the preliminary ideas. We've never, in a project I worked on, taken one of those ideas whole like as is presented initially and said, that's great, we did perfect, we got it right on the first try. And so it's usually hybridizing those in some way. Again, hearing what the feedback is from the community. After we have that preferred community concept and we sent that out for community engagement, at that point it gets a little bit different. It's more just like, here it is. Here it is. Let us know if you have any feedback. We don't specifically ask closed-ended questions. We don't like, do you like this? We say, tell us what you like about this. And so or tell us what we've missed. So we can make little tweaks, just kind of fine tune it before it goes to you and to city council. We also develop a preliminary phasing strategy. We are not able in the current climate to develop a whole park at once. We have to phase our development. And so we start thinking about what's the first phase going to look like. That's really the main question. And we take this round of community engagement as a opportunity to ask that question. What is most important? What should we really focus on first? And then we do the first cost estimate. We do lots of cost estimates through this process, but this is the first one, and it's called a rough order of magnitude cost estimate. It's just high level, just a pretty big snapshot, just general idea of what could it cost. And then we actually prepare a document, a report, and that's what goes to you and to City Council for endorsement by SPRAB and then approval by City Council. I'm going to walk through just some visual examples. I'm going to start for this, the first few slides I'm going to show you. I'm going to use Fisher Road Park as an example. Advertising our outreach is the first part of it, like actually getting the word out, like, hey, there's an opportunity to participate. And we do that in a variety of ways. Some examples I have up here, this is a postcard that we sent to local residents that we made. And then this is yard signs. We really like yard signs. We actually place the signs in the park. So, you know, you're going walking your dog or whatever you're doing, you know, we get free advertising in our parks, so we use that. And then this is this one, it was to advertise taking the survey specifically. So that was to come to our houses to take the survey. Just give you an example of the kind of materials we put out.
Did you go to that one, December 8th, 23?
I go to them all. Yeah.
How well attended is that?
That first open house we did for this project was not shockingly well attended. It was we had over a dozen people, but I certainly didn't have over 100. I have some photos of it though later in my presentation.
So I think it's important to have an idea of how successful that engagement is.
Yeah, I would say I would say if we have 20 people come on an open house, we probably have 150 people take an online survey. We get far better reach with the online surveys. But you know, sometimes people really just they need to talk to us. And so having multiple forms is really helpful.
Yes.
Did you bigger outcome on the Fairview Park? Did you have a bigger?
Absolutely. Of course, that's a community park that serves a much broader area.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
I would imagine the people that do show up in person are the most ardent users or of the park.
It's a topic we discuss about a lot. There are a lot of factors that play into it. In Fisher Road Park, I felt like we were struggling just some barriers with language, but also barriers like, why does the city want to talk to us? They've never asked us, that, you know, we've never been engaged this way. What is this? And so we had to overcome some barriers, and we did the best we could. Toward the end of that project, we actually had interns go out and knock on people's doors and leave door hangers and like really try to talk about why we want them to pay attention to us and take our survey. And that did seem to work a little bit better. I talked about opportunities and constraints. Here's actually our opportunities and constraints diagram from this particular project. So, you know, I don't know if you've ever taken gone to planning school or gone to land interpretation school. You know, we talk about barriers, lines, and nodes, and like really understanding how people could use the site, and that's what's being represented here. Just trying to understand like what is the opportunity of this unique site. And I don't expect you to read that. Just want to show you that we do that. We do things like to give people scale. They're like, I want a full-size soccer field at Fisher Road Park. Well, you said, this is the size of full-size soccer field. So if we put that in, what else do we have room for? Just to give the scale and the context for that. We often use precedent images. We show examples of what exists or give them ideas of what, you know, what could be in the park. The problem with this is that we basically could limit their imagination to think of other things. And so we always try to we always want to have an other category. We always be careful doing this, but we do want to, especially the neighborhood park, we often do this. And then taking those precedent images, Ray and I are a fan of something I call the yard sale activity. So if you're thinking you're at the public meeting, right? And we can mimic this online in a survey too. We give every participant the kind of stickers that they sell at like an office supply store that's to help you have a yard sale. They have free prices on them. And they see everyone gets the same amount of fake money basically. And then they use those dots and they purchase what they want to show us how they spend the city's money, essentially. If the money was up to them, how would they spend it? And that's just an idea of how we commonly get feedback initially. Then here is a photo of our lightly attended event, but you see we spread out. This was at a Boys and Girls Club. People start and it's more of an open house. They read these boards, they understand all this information we've provided. They start putting stickers on boards, and then we hopefully get them to sit down and we'll have them make their own layouts, working together as a couple neighbors together, have them actually start placing out those things and show us where they would put things on the site. We just start collecting a lot of ideas at that point. Okay, then going back here, we're now like at this point. I'm just checking in on where we are in this process, and then we start advertising again. We get more advertising. Come to our event. We have two options for you to look at. Now we're over at Fairview Park, and the next set of examples I'm going to be using. We try to get the word out to come to us, take our survey, come to our pop-up event, and then we present always more than one option. I just want to point out here, we have the precedent images being reused to kind of show where those uses are proposed and get visual as possible. And then the intended choice to use hand sketching to make it really clear this is preliminary. This is just, we're just putting pen to pencil. This is very a first go. We're just testing ideas. So you see that we use like, make it look not final as much as we can. So it's more of a sketch. And then here's another option that we did for that project, just again to show sketching out ideas. Get a ton more feedback. I think on this online survey, I think we got 600 responses on this one because again it was a community park. It had a broader interest. And so then we are then getting ready for our preferred concept review. And then here you can take, it's not a sketch anymore. It's a little bit more crisp. And we put a little bit more detail into it. We often have multiple views. People can see it and visualize it in a different way. And then we start working on that cost estimate and that phasing plan. And so here is the Fairview Park phasing plan. The phase one has a core plan, which is this red area, which is a dog park and some lawn and some trail system and setting up for a future playground and picnic area. And then we were lucky to get a grant that allows us to do an ad alternate called phase 1B, which is the interpretive space. So the budget we have for this project is the blue area and the red area. We have not been able to secure funds for some additional basically open irrigated lawn area. We'll have to do that some future time, as well as a pickleball complex. We don't have the funds to do that yet. We'll have to be a future phase. I just want
What are
to.
the buildings just north of that pickleball concept?
This is Fairview Industrial, so these are
Those are not residents.
these are light industrial businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are big apartment buildings on the lower to the right.
These are all apartments down here.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which
far
weren't-
enough away.
Which weren't there when you did the original master plan.
Yeah.
15 years ago.
This might be a better view. You can see the pickleball, and then this is a power transfer station, and the residential areas are status way.
It appears to be thoughtfully located.
We certainly try. We also always get that first cost estimate for this project. We actually had a professional cost estimation company on the team, and they gave us a professionally prepared cost estimation report. I always don't enjoy receiving these. That lovely cost I just showed you was estimated in this year's dollars to be cost over $16 million. Wow. So then we go, oh my goodness, we definitely need a phase plan.
Put it back on the shelf for another 15 years.
And I will say our first phase for Fairview Park, just to give you an idea, has a budget of $5.5 million. Then we go to the second phase. So then after that plan is done, it goes and we identify a phase, and we have a phase plan that helps us do that. And then it goes into the CIP, remember the CIP process, and it gets ranked and it gets funded. We match funding to it. It gets the money gets approved by city council. And then we get to the second phase, which is the design and engineering phase. And again, the first step is we procure consultant services for the work ahead. And I'll tell you, at Fairview Park, we have been doing that for 4 months. It's an important project, and we just got to get it right. And so we've been going back and forth with our prospective design team many times to make sure we are getting the services we need, not paying for scope we don't need, making that budget go as far as possible. So I think we're really close, but it can take months just to figure out that contract with them. And it's just, you got to do it. You have to set up the project well. For Fairview Park too, we also have an open RFP right now for an interpretive designer. to help us with that interpretive space. And so that we're bringing in some extra consultants that we don't normally work with. And so again, that's just more process for us. We need other specialties on that project. We then do additional site investigation, and this is where we are now drilling down. We are now really getting to understand what the site is. We do a topographic survey that we get the surveyors out there and they start really do a full topographic survey. We understand the L grades, we identify where the trees are and all that stuff. We start investigating utilities and how we're going to do utility connections. Honestly, we do that in the initial step, but it gets more serious in this step. Like, how are we actually going to get the sewer there? How are we actually going to do the stormwater? And we do geotechnical analysis. We spend money to have people go out and actually dig holes or drill holes, tell us what the soil conditions are. So if we're building a building, we know what the foundation needs to be designed for. If we're doing we are always doing stormwater, but we need to understand how quickly the water will infiltrate into the soils at that site. So they do something called infiltration testing. We get all this detailed information that the professional designers are going to use to develop the park plans. We then get to the schematic design, which I just showed you that colorful concept for Brown Road Park. That's the schematic design. And then we get a cost estimate. If we do community engagement in this phase, it's typically at this point. We always are informing the community, like, this is where we are, but like, if there's a playground specifically or an opportunity to actually get some further input on it, this is the opportunity to. So for Brown Road Park, in the coming months, we'll be trying to engage the community. We're probably gonna wait till school gets back in session, but we're trying to engage that surrounding neighborhood to help us pick the exact playground equipment, because that's a really great opportunity to get them involved. We then continue to develop a more detailed design, just more details to those construction documents. We go through that land use process. We need to, Salem has been a city for a very long time, and before European settlers were here, it was a place for other people who were here for a very, very, very long time. And so we're full of cultural resources underground everywhere. And so our parks are often in places that are culturally sensitive. And so we are having archaeologists go out and clear our projects for construction. That's the simplest way to put it. That is involved in almost every single project we do, because Salem just has a lot of history. We do the final design development. We call that 90%, so that like we're really getting all the details figured out. We know what kind of bench it's going to be. We know all the details at that point. We update the estimate again. We then go and get permits. We get our ground disturbance approval. So like we have to actually get approval from the city archaeologist. You are good to break ground. And then we get 100% construction documents. And we get the final engineer's estimate, their final take on what it's going to cost. And that's just our opinion. We don't share that with the bidders. But we need to understand what we think it's going to cost. And so that's what that's about. And then that all goes up to engineering, and then they do public bidding and they deliver the project for us. I'm not going to talk about that next phase because I get way less involved then. Park planning teams is heavily involved in everything I shared with you today. This is where we stay involved, and when it gets to actually being a construction project, we are involved, but we're communicating with the community. We're being a technical resource. It's actually the engineers upstairs that deliver the project, that actually work with the contractors. And that, I have some more graphics. So then here is again another schematic design for McKay Park, which is currently under construction. Here is McKay Park's final construction documents, which all I want to show you here is that it's a very big list of plan sheets. There are all sorts of detailed plans we prepare at that point. By the time you get to 100% design, it's a thick book. Everything's detailed. We have, irrigation, we have demolition, we have electrical plans, we have erosion plans, all sorts of things in there. And then this is just an example of an engineer's cost estimate. It gets very detailed at the end. And that's all I have. This is just to show you that process one more time. Give you a general idea of how things go. I will say this is like a perfect process, but we never follow the perfect process. There's always something a little unique on every project.
Any questions?
Previous slide, you itemized or listed when SPRAB was giving the approval during the planning process. And it's right before we send it to the city council.
Oh, yes.
And I'm just kind of curious, this is clearly towards the end of an extensive project that's got a lot of inputs from many people, the public and whatnot. I'd feel pretty uncomfortable overturning that after all of that work. So when we get things, I don't like the idea that, you know, we have to rubber stamp everything, but it's sort of like a last gasp effort in case somebody finds something that wasn't done or skipped.
Yeah, and that is a really good point. I think maybe this background research, this very beginning, it's an opportunity for the park planners that really understand, like, from a system-wide, long-range planning perspective, what should that park be? Like, what do we need that park to do? You know, that can kind of, like, if there was gonna be a splash pad, maybe we would have a long-range plan that said, you know, this community, this part of Salem, we need a splash pad in this part of Salem. And that is, could be identified really early on. And so we can kind of talk about that throughout the project, or really at the beginning, we identify that. And so I think SPRAD could have a really big role in making sure the new system plan is set up really well, so that, you know, SPRAD could have a lot of say just on the policies and the setup. And so that you're basically just making sure we did the outreach and that we're listening to the community and that we are following those policies that we have in our long range plan.
Yeah, I remember it was probably the second, maybe the third, the second community engagement for Fairview. I remember attending that open house. And you were able to talk to people as well as they were giving their own opinion, but you also got to interact with them. I thought that was quite valuable for when you get down to the bottom where we review it, recommendation aspect of it, to have really talked to the people that were there to do that. And I think it'd be great if, when you have those, if you let us know.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
we can attend if we are able.
Absolutely. I will say currently, we are not doing any park specific plans, aside from Wallace National Area. And that's somewhat intentional. We are really gearing up to that system plan update. So that's because that's going to be a major focus for the next few years.
Okay.
Year two, I'll just say you will be getting more involved in that every meeting as we go through time.
Thank you, Rob,
Yeah.
for everything you do. And I know you have a lot of time in your hands, so.
I hope you get to go to the park and play occasionally.
Alrighty. Council liaison updates, Mickey.
Since we're talking a lot about money and stuff here, I'm just looking at some notes I have. Some items of interest. One thing at the May 26th council meeting, there is quite a discussion on the proposed use of metal detectors at council chambers for security. And as a result of that discussion, staff is developing a policy and plan on implementation for council's further deliberation. So no decision's been made or whatever. It's just with costs and kind of how that would be implemented is going to be coming to council. Then on June 8th, earlier this week, there were public hearings on the use of state revenue, the revenue we get from liquor sales, et cetera. The city of Salem budget, the urban renewal area budget. So there were public hearings on that. So that's part of the budget process for the upcoming fiscal year 2027. Let's see, also adoption of the proposed 2027 fee schedule. It's pretty much the same. One of the places of interest for the increase is the annual increase of the operations fee that follows the CPI, which was 2.9% this year. And so, for example, on a residential account, the operations fee coming up in January, the operations fee would increase by 47 cents a month. So that's the impact on residential to keep up with CPI. The other thing that happened at Monday's council meeting, a discussion about the convention center expansion. This was something proposed. There was a study done. I'm trying to remember, 2019 maybe? Come to think of it. And so we decided to move forward with doing an update of that expansion study and marketing, et cetera. And so that's gonna be going on, just updating the study to find out how feasible it is. There's definitely a need. One of the questions that was brought up was, so what does this expansion, kind of, the area, where would it expand to? And apparently in the plans, would be to expand into the sculpture garden there to create more room. Okay. And then lastly, on June 22nd, council will be having deliberations on adoption of the city budget and the CIP, since we were talking about the CIP. So those are my updates.
Thank you. Any questions?
Okay.
Of course, Ellen has a question.
Or any other council stuff I can help with.
I'm curious if you can give us any update or any information on if there's an effort for recovery of property tax from state properties. I know the state is exempt from property taxes locally, and it kind of hurts us as a city in our budget. Is there any effort to try to?
Yeah, it's a continued effort. I believe it's listed on our legislative priorities for the upcoming year to keep moving forward on that. We'll see what happens this next legislative session, because it does come up in the sessions, and hopefully we'll make more progress.
Well, maybe if with lack of funds from them and our city streets get so bad they have a hard time driving to the Capitol building, they may reevaluate that.
Possibly. I mean, the other thing that we're looking at for revenue is the restructuring of the operations fee to make it more equitable or fair in terms of the user. For instance, a commercial account, maybe a small business barber shop, gets assessed the same fee as a great big larger business that might use more city services or whatever. So that process is still ongoing. That was something that's been needed for years, but we weren't able to even start looking at that until we got new software to be able to look at different kind of uses or assessments. And do we look at square footage? Do we look at other things to assess, usage or size? So that's kind of, we're working on that, because obviously the payment in lieu of taxes is a huge thing that we need.
It's encouraging to see those efforts. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, Mickey.
You're welcome. Yeah.
It's always a joy to have you with us.
Thank you.
Board member updates. I'm just gonna put another plug in, well, a couple of things. First of all, hopefully, next week, you will be getting, a quick email from Rob. I would encourage you to respond quickly so that decisions, can be made. Also, if you have not visited your neighborhood associations, it's kind of important to do that. Over the summer, some of them don't even meet because of everybody's on vacation in the middle of the summer. But, or they might just have a picnic and not have any business at all. And I say that because in September, they're all gonna be getting communications about the SPIF. Yeah, I'm horrible with acronyms, horrible with it. I have stories I could tell you. So they're gonna be getting information on the SPIF for them to apply. And it'd be great if they could have a month or two to start to figure out exactly if they would, what they would like to apply for. So, I would encourage you, if you have not, to take advantage of Rob making you a slideshow. They're wonderful slideshows. They work very well. And if your neighborhood association doesn't have the ability to use a slideshow, he will actually have all printed out and with copies for you to take to hand out for handouts. But I encourage you to do that. Of course, I have to gloat and say I've already done mine. We have no idea who's done, what neighborhood associations have been covered and have not. If you don't use Rob. So, take advantage of your ability to be able to give a apprehensive and intelligent presentation. Because they really helped me, that's for sure. Okay, any other,
Yeah, I do. Okay.
go ahead.
So I have a statement I want to read. I'm not trying to lay a bomb here, but it's going to feel like that. So as part of my neighborhood association, I also visit Swan. And one of the things I wanted to do was go out and visit that mysterious Bailey Ridge Park that we talked about and see that swell, which had me intrigued from the start. I was immediately concerned after my visit, I have to say. So I'm going to read this statement because I think it'll be more coherent than me just blabbing, okay? So I would like to raise some concerns about the Bailey Ridge Park project, which I think, if I remember a couple meetings back, is like 1.5 million to address that, if I remember correctly. 1.4, 1.5, and the decisions that brought us to this point. This park is isolated, is in the Illahee area. And as I walked the swell, I could see the tree farm next to it. I felt the park was isolated. I felt like also it was misplaced. There's a home above it that literally is almost the size of the park, and it's surrounded by rather large homes. Okay, here we go. Recently, I walked the length of Chambers Swale and Bailey Ridge Park in preparation for presenting to Swan, just so that I could be familiar with this new park that's out there. What struck me was that this is not simply a park project. A significant portion of the investment appears to be tied to addressing erosion, drainage, and environmental conditions associated with the swell. But that led me to ask a fundamental question. Why did the city accept ownership of such a problematic property to allow these Illahee extension properties built with the known challenges without ensuring that these long-term costs would not fall on the taxpayers, but on the developer themselves? I also attended a Swan neighborhood meeting where Bailey Ridge did come up after I went through some other business. During that discussion, there was a member there of the Bailey Ridge community and said that they agreed the park would probably have limited use, and that probably children would not play in this park if they ever got a playground there. It looks like the city put a couple picnic tables there, but I bet if we had cameras on that park, it would hardly ever be used. I have to be serious, okay? It was also acknowledged that the swell creates issues for some of the homes below it. These multi-million-dollar homes below the swell are being affected by the extra water and erosion issues. Those comments left me wondering about the whole project from the beginning to the end. Is it being driven primarily by recreation needs or by the need to address the drainage and erosion concerns associated with the subdivision, which, Rob, you've already mentioned in your presentation? Okay, that's fine. But what makes this especially difficult for me to understand, knowing that there are pressing needs in what I call high residential areas with children, okay? What makes this especially difficult to understand is that Bailey Ridge is a relatively affluent neighborhood with large residential lots. Like I said, one above the ridge is a huge home with the lot almost as large as the park itself, and lots of access to natural open space, including nearby Minto Brown Park. In addition, riparian corridors and natural areas already exist throughout the surrounding area for people to go to. A skeptical taxpayer could reasonably ask why the city is making such a substantial investment in a location where even supporters appear, and what the supporter that was there who lived in Bailey Ridge expected it to have limited recreational use. Probably children would be playing there, even if they got a playground there, while other parts of Salem continue to have unmet park and recreation needs. The money has largely been spent, I understand, and it's all been distributed or will be. And I recognize that we cannot undo decisions made years ago, and I did a real deep dive in how the property was given to us. But let me tell you what it looks like. It looks like, I mean, just from layman perspective, it looks like we want to expand our Illahee, housing development. And we're going to build around this natural swell, where if the swell had been left alone, it would have been swell. Does that make sense? And so what happened here is, I mean, I don't want to use this word corruption, but it looks like this is a problematic property where somehow it was shifted over the city to fix. I mean, and this is what it looked like. And I encourage you to go up there.
You've been in.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So you guys maybe know all this, but to me, I kind of was stunned as I started to look at this and then hear the comments from people at Bailey Ridge. Okay, they're wonderful people. Everyone's wonderful in all this. However, I believe this project raises important questions about foresight and oversight. If development contributed to the conditions that we are now spending 1.5 million restoring, why didn't the developer fix that? Or why did the city even allow for developments around it? Looks like they shifted the bill to the city, to be honest. This appears to be a very expensive undertaking for what may ultimately function more as just a drainage and restoration project in a private riparian area for a bunch of rich people in a very limited area that has even awkward public access. You have to drive into the neighborhood, turn. There's not a lot of adequate parking. You know what I'm talking about. You've been there. So as board members, I just want to say we do have a responsibility to ensure, and I wasn't here for this, I wasn't in the city hearings and everything. I'm sure there was a lot done to ensure that future decisions are guided by careful stewardship of public resources and a clear understanding who benefits from these investments. Of all these wonderful parks, and I haven't been in the board that long, they look great. Everything looks great. But this is one park I went to where its existence to me seemed very problematic in the way it was developed around the swell and everything. When we're looking at issues of equity and knowing that some of our parks are languishing for funds, I question this, okay? I don't know how it happened. I hope we will all examine how this situation develops so that we do not find ourselves in similar situations in the future. Thank you very much. Said my piece.
Okay,
Okay, any comments? No.
any comments? I have issues with, that when we visited, it seems like a lot of, how shall I say this diplomatically? We have very limited funds and we have very needy parks. And, I don't think that the people who live in Illahee have a problem with recreational activities, by and large. So, spending $1.5 million to me is a real push. I mean, it's difficult for me also. So I don't know what your response is to all this.
I just have two things to add. First, a great conversation that they having as a board at the start of an update to the system-wide park system plan that we're going to be focusing on improving equity across the city. So great discussion to be having. And then the other one, I do want to flag that this project does have multiple sources of funding, although the other source is not a particularly significant source. It's only $200,000, but it's the city's TMDL program. Essentially, it's the city investing in improvements that help address water quality issues across the city. The water quality issue at the site being erosion. And so it is largely funded by system development charges. And this is a newer area of the city. So these homes paid system development charges. So that is a component of the project. But we are fortunate to have some funding from this other source of funds, which is from Public Works. It's specifically for water quality improvement projects.
So the homeowners are paying extra taxes to have that addressed.
They pay at the bottom, the system development charges pay for much of that.
The system development charges are paid at the time that typically they're paid at the time of occupancy of the building. So it's probably the developer who paid the fee, but a fee was paid for every housing unit. That fee is approximately $5,000 per single family house. And so that was paid to the city to expand our park system to serve new residents. And so when we get into park system methodologies, which is a very complex topic, that you'll see that the current methodologies the city has really line up new development areas of the city with where parks should be being invested in. The system plan update is an opportunity to maybe change that thought process a little bit.
Right, because I liked what we are doing over at State Street with that new park and that development going in. And you talked about they're gonna need to work on that drainage. Okay,
Yeah, no, I think that there's a lot that you're raising that is just very good to get out and to be discussed.
okay, yeah, it just.
Yeah.
And I wanna say like 99% of everything I see is just wonderful here. But this seemed more complex about how it went down and what we're stuck with. Maybe, like I said, don't build around swells.
Turned into a water park. I don't know, there may be options. This splash, 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 a couple of it. But I want to bring up a simple one. Were you finished? Did you?
Oh, I'm
feel
done, I'm
heard?
done.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. That was well done.
I felt scared.
Oh, I know you did a great job. It was well done. So just an easy one. I went to Grant Community and one of the things that they talked about there was just simply needing a garbage can. You know, and I thought, oh, well, great, it gave me something to work on. So who do I talk to? Can we get a garbage can? They need one. And do you want me to email you the details?
Jennifer Keller, it would be more direct.
Jennifer?
And she'll send it to the field supervisor.
Okay.
His name is Zach Close.
Okay. And then as far as the maintenance on those, that occurs just through the city maintenance department. So if there's an issue with that, that goes to her as well.
Yeah.
Or a different, okay.
Well, probably to the field supervisors, but
We'll go through her.
Yeah, let's go through her. That's the best way to do it.
And I would encourage board members to bring back comments from their neighborhood associations. Because we don't want to live in a bubble here. You know, we want to know what's going on, and one of the reasons for going to our neighborhood associations is to find out what's going on, find out what they're concerned about. So we can, because it's probably easier for them to talk to us at one of their meetings than for them to come to our board meeting here and complain about something.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything else from anybody? Okay, all right. Information reports.
Yes, we weren't able to get our act together for a written report, so I'm just gonna briefly highlight again our current construction projects and the projects that are currently in design, just for awareness. It's always good to remind members. Deer Park, we are opening everything up. So we opened the new dog park last Friday. You didn't get the signs in the mail yet. Both of the signs are out. Waiting for me. The signs will be sold soon. But the baseball fields had their first game recently. This Saturday, I understand soccer was played on the new soccer fields. The parking lot's fully back open. And so that's positive. That's all positive stuff to share with you. More positive stuff, McKay Park started. So as we opened those Gear Park soccer fields, we closed the McKay Park soccer fields. And the contractor has gotten right to work that if you've been to McKay Park, maybe on a tour or by yourself, you may remember there's a pretty unsightly old playground facility right when you enter the park. And that has been demolished. The contractor discovered that it was they used a ton of rebar. It was a well-engineered concrete mass. It is gone now, so that's good. Riverfront Park project is proceeding. The contractor has almost completed all their conduit runs for the new power system. The new power system won't be fully online until this fall, But getting the conduits in is really great because we're about to hit the major event season. And so we really wanted just to try to get out of the way. And so the contractor's in the process of really dialing in their footprint to just the playground area for the next few months. While the events can just take place in the park. Like we have a Juneteenth event coming up. We have World Beat, and then it's just gonna get even busier as the summer goes on.
Is there a date for the opening of the playground?
Not yet, not an
Okay.
actual date yet. I'm anticipating late August or early September for the playground at this time. Daly Ridge Park is on my list. That is gonna start, that the contractor has a notice to proceed and is gonna start construction in mid-July. And then in terms of design projects, I've shared with you Brown Road Park. But I also want to share that we have actually started design on Fisher Road Park. So the landscape architecture firm that's leading that design is Greenworks, who's done a lot of our work for us recently. They now are under contract and there should be a survey team out there today doing that topographic survey. That process is now moving forward. And lastly, I already mentioned this, but I'll say it one more time, Fairview Park, we're really close to getting that designer dialed in. And so that design work is going to start here very soon. And then we also have a open RFP out for an interpretive design team to help us with that interpretive space specifically. If you happen to know someone who's an interpretive designer or an interpretive planner, I was hesitating, shaking no, but if you did, let me know. I could share that RFP with you. We're trying to get some good talent in to help us with that project. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions? All right, any new business? New business for probably future meetings. Hearing none, then we are adjourned.